My wife and me to record it for him, so we did. We never knew what he did with the recording, but we did it as he asked. So, continuing on my original comment about Dad's love of learning and leaving me without legacy, I found it both exciting and consuming. And I don't have the education that he had, nor do I have the knowledge of the various subjects, but I have more in some areas such as mechanics and science. We always said that Dad could not boil water without burning it. That's not quite true since he learned how to make candy. It was in the area of math that we exchanged many ideas and discussions. And one of those delved on the area of what is called, back up. I'm jumping ahead. I'll stay where I was. Many of our conversations that took place during dinner, and we had those every dinner, were very broad and very interesting. No subject was beyond reach, and books were often brought to the table so that we could use them for reference purposes. And we were subjected to learning Spanish, and while we did learn little, it didn't take, besides the point. And that was long before the Hispanic-Mexican invasion of our Southwest. Instilling that learning syndrome has caused me to learn other languages. In fact, I learned to speak French before I did English, simply because my mother was living in Paris at the time, studying at the Sorbonne. So both my brother and I were handled by a French governess who did not speak any English. Ipso facto, we learned French. When we came home, we didn't speak any English. So that was our beginning. Since then, I've studied other languages, and I work in the area of international trade because I am a medical device consultant. I deal with foreign firms who want to market their medical devices here in the United States. I take them through the horror story of our Food and Drug Administration regulatory process. And I can tell you, it's a horror story. It doesn't improve with age. Dad had boundless energy, as I mentioned. He also had determination that knew no end. Regardless of the task, if it was worth doing, it should be undertaken with two thoughts in mind. One, know as much as you can about what you are doing, and two, do it right. Now, I'd like to talk about what Dad considered himself throughout his life and what I consider myself. And we both considered it a noble profession. Salesman. Most people think of salesmen in an adverse way. But a genuine salesman is a teacher. A genuine salesman seeks to educate his customer or prospect with the benefits of the product or service he wishes to sell. He tries to describe how that will help his customer or prospect do what he or she wants to accomplish. And this is all part of education. So a good salesman always works from that level. Now, we all know used car salesmen who don't. Well, I consider most of them charlatans. And we've got a lot of charlatans in the sales area. But generally speaking, most salesmen are educators. And one of the things they do is they educate themselves on their product or service so they may answer any and all questions. And it isn't that a salesman is so smart when he gives you that fast answer. It's because he's met that problem before and has realized what it took to answer the question properly and educate his customer appropriately. So please keep in mind, both Dad and I are salesmen. I've been a salesman all my professional career, and I will die one. And when I get up to the Lord, I'm going to try and sell him something. One of the evening discussions that we got into at the dinner table had to do with what we call the still in the right place. The known, the unknown, and the unknowable. And this led to a rather lengthy evening discussion because we talked about what is known. Well, those are all the things that you already know, you know how to use them, you can apply that knowledge. The unknown are those areas where you don't know at this time. And yet you are constantly, even daily, working to push back that particular frontier, so you will then have an additional piece of knowledge, and you've now brought it over from the unknown into the known. This is true of the universe. And then we move into the area of the unknowable. Now you contemplate the universe, and you consider how it was created, and you realize that you are in the area, at least at this time, of the unknowable. But that too is being pushed daily, and you seek to bring over from the unknowable into the knowable, and then into the known. And this is how you build your educational base and your knowledge base. And this was a rather lengthy evening discussion that actually transcended many evenings. It didn't stop with just one. We kept on going. Another aspect of Dad's interest, as I mentioned before, something's happened here. Excuse me.
He skipped several frames.
Go back.
Big go.
You did that in honor of your father.
Yeah, but somebody's. Yeah, wait, there we go.
Education.
Travel, an educational experience, yeah. That's what I was trying to get to. Dad was interested in travel, and he did travel all over the world. He also met with many heads of state when he did these travels. He felt so much that travel was an educational experience that back in 1940, we made a 13,000-mile trip around the United States. We did it in 6 weeks by automobile. And there is the automobile, and there we are, the whole family. We have just gone through the giant sequoia tree, which you can drive through, and I believe you can still do it today. Moving on, this is a book that Dad wrote because of his great interest in education. It does put forth his belief in the excitement of education and why everybody should be so excited as he was in learning. And the romance of education is the title he gave to it. Dad liked a challenge, which is part of education. And one of his greatest challenges, because of his interest in math, was known as Fermat's theorem. Fermat's theorem states that x to the n, and that's times y to the n equals z to the n, cannot be true for any equation in which n is greater than 2, the binomial theorem. Fermat wrote in his manuscript, in the side of it, that he had proved that. And that was the last theorem he wrote. Unfortunately, nobody could find the proof he said he had discovered. Many mathematicians have struggled with that, including my father. And he, not liking computers and not having them at that time, scribbled many thousands of pages of notes attempting to prove Fermat's theorem. He never did, but he did pile up the papers. My understanding is that it has now been solved by somebody with a computer, something like the Craig computer, in which they could manipulate billions of computations in a fraction of a second. But I haven't seen it. At any rate, that was of great interest to him. And Dad also liked puns and jokes. And one in particular that I know he enjoyed had to do with a farmer who had many chickens. And they were called pullets.